Good afternoon. We're going to start in just a couple of minutes. So if you could get to your seats, we'll be starting in about 30 seconds. Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Portland, Oregon's premier citizen forum. I'm Jim Zarin, the president-elect of the City Club. I'm subbing for Don Williams, our president, who has been ill and has temporarily, we hope, lost his voice. But in true City Club fashion, Don is here, though he's sick. Don, where are you? Someplace. So that's the kind of president you have. He crawls out of his sick bed just to come here to the Friday Forum. For our program today, our governor will give his State of the State address. For the benefit of your neighbors in the room and for the benefit of our radio and television audiences, please silence your cell phones and any other device you have that makes noise. And I'm going to do something a little different here. We have an awful lot of people in this room who are currently serving in public office or are formally filed to run for public office. And rather to try to introduce some of them, with the exception of our speaker, I would like everybody in the room that's currently serving in an elective office or is currently running for an elective office to stand up and be recognized. Yeah. I always feel like we give our elected officials a lot of grief about what they do and what they don't do, and they don't get near enough credit for just deciding to run and making the effort it takes to do that. So we're glad you're all here and happy you could join us. First, a few announcements. Join us at next City Club's Friday Forum when we will host the debates between candidates for important political offices. Next week will feature the two Democratic candidates for Oregon Attorney General, John Kroger and Greg McPherson. Are either John or Greg here today? Okay, Greg's in the back. Thank you. The moderator of the debate will be Lee Pelton, who's the president of Willamette University Law School. Now, because no other candidate other than John or Greg has filed for the office of Attorney General, the winner of this Democratic primary will be our next Attorney General. So this is a very important debate, and we encourage you all to attend. And as I mentioned, this is only the first debate next week of a series of important political debates the City Club is going to be hosting as we head into the meat of the political campaign season. Hosting candidate debates is a time-honored tradition of the City Club, and it's the organization's mission of informing our citizenry of public matters. So please take note. Although the club will be hosting debates into the general campaign season well into the fall, during just the next 2 months, we will have the following debates on these Friday forums. April 4th, the U.S. Senate Democratic primary debate. April 18th, the Mayor of Portland debate. Somebody in this room will be able to tell us whether he will be up on stage that day or not. April 25th, the Portland City Commissioner seat number 2 debate. May 2nd, Oregon Secretary of State Democratic primary debate. And May 9th, the Portland City Commissioner seat number 1 debate. That's just in the next 2 months. So watch for the follow-up announcements in the City Club Bulletin regarding these debates, and sign up early and often and come to listen to what these people have to say who are seeking your votes to serve in these important public offices at the state and local level. And this year, for the very first time, we're also making this even more inclusive for all of you who are active in the City Club, because you can send to the City Club's website the questions you would like to see asked of these various candidates at these various debates. So take advantage of that opportunity as well. Now that's Friday programs. Another thing that City Club has always done as we enter our 92nd year is to do research. And in this regard, be aware that you now have the opportunity to propose topics for our next long-term research study. The club's research program is comprised of committees of citizen volunteers who are carefully screened for conflicts of interest And the reports that they produce, as I think probably everybody in the room knows, result in credible information and well-analyzed solutions to some of the most difficult problems we're trying to solve at the local, regional, and state level. So you can contribute to this process by having this process excel by submitting your suggestions. And I think there are blue cards on your tables. Maybe somebody could hold one up in the front that are a form to, somebody got a blue card? There we go. At each of your tables. So grab one, fill out what you think is a good research topic for the City Club to study. There's more from the staff in the back of the room, and you can participate in that way. City Club members and guests are invited to drop by the City Club's offices at the City Club Commons, which is at 901 Southwest Washington in downtown Portland, next Friday, March 28th, from 4:30 to 6:30, end the week that way, for our final Friday open house. You can mingle, you can mingle with fellow club members, learn more about the City Club if you're not yet a member, and check out the artwork that's on display. It's free, it's open to the public, and no RSVP is required. That's next Friday at 4:30 at the City Club Commons. Very quickly, I want to announce that we have several new members today. I would like you to hold your applause, have each one of them stand and remain standing. Alan Alley, Republican candidate for Oregon Treasurer. Oregon Representative Suzanne Bonamici. Edward Hill from Edward Hill and Associates. Avery Penn from Merrill Lynch. Susan Hall from Wells Fargo Sustainability Program. Let's give them all a warm welcome as City Club members. Now, we wouldn't be able to have these wonderful City Club programs, as Don always tells us, without the generous support of our sponsors, our corporate sponsors. So please join me in thanking our corporate sponsors for this quarter, Zimmer Gunsel Frasca Architects, the law firm of Schwabe Williamson and Wyatt, and Key Bank. Thank you very much. And with this loud and large crowd here, I want to take the opportunity to point out that we also cannot have these engaging and enlightening City Club Friday forums without a robust City Club membership of active members who are members and make financial contributions in support of the club. My guess is there's many people in the room that have been to these Friday forums off and on over perhaps many years. You've never quite gotten to the point of joining. And there's probably also a lot of people who have been members, but for one reason or another, let your membership lapse and you've never quite gotten around to rejoining. I want to encourage all of you who are not current members in the room today to think about joining. There are membership forms at your table. If you join today, we're waiving the $25 membership fee. It's $165 to join. If you're under 31, it's half of that. Think how much you spend on other things in your life and consider joining. We now have presidential candidates coming to our fair state telling us that, among other things, we all have to participate in making this a better society. Somebody in particular comes to mind as I say that. And if you really do believe that, the thing to do is to step up and do what you can to make this a better place. And one of the things you can do is support organizations like the City Club of Portland. So I really encourage all of you who aren't members to pick up a form and join before you leave the room today. And now to our program. At last month's winter meeting of the National Governors Association, our nation's governors addressed issues such as the following: immigration, transportation infrastructure funding, education, health care reform, and climate change. Indeed, in this political era when it appears that our national government seems unable to address successfully some of the most difficult domestic issues that our society is facing, our governors increasingly have found themselves in a position of needing to step up and lead on some of the most complex and daunting issues we all face. Oregon is fortunate indeed to have as its governor a political leader with a lifetime of experience and accumulated knowledge regarding public and political issues. Indeed, when he took office in January 2003, he became the only governor in the history of the state that had served as an elected official in all three branches of our state government. Not only that, but in keeping with the personalization of our speakers that Don Williams has brought to us as president, I also want to mention that our speaker is a passionate Red Sox fan. At least that's what Don tells me, and the governor doesn't argue with that. I also can point out that his favorite country western song is "He Stopped Loving Her Today" by George Jones. And he also loves to fish in the lakes of Oregon's high country where nobody else can find him. He can tell you how he knows where those lakes are. And we're very honored that he, like his predecessors before him, have selected the City Club of Portland to make his annual State of the State address. And I ask you to give a warm City Club welcome to today's speaker, our governor, the Honorable Ted Kulongoski.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you, Jim, for your very nice introduction on behalf of all the other Red Sox fans. I also want to thank the members of the City Club of Portland for your civic engagement and for giving me this forum to deliver my 6th State of the State address. Now, I have to tell you, I wanted to make sure that what I said where I was at was very clear, because someone came up to me as I came in and asked me if this was the overflow room for Barack Obama's speech at the Coliseum. For those of you closer to my age than Barack Obama, you might remember the great American statesman Adlai Stevenson. He used to give speeches at clubs like this, and one day he was addressing an audience, and a woman stood up, and the following exchange took place. She said, "Oh, Mr. Stevenson, your speech was superfluous." And he responded, "Thank you, madam. I've been thinking of having it published posthumously." And she then answered, "Oh, won't that be nice? The sooner the better." I admire any political leader who can laugh at himself or herself. But today, I'm going to be substantive, not superfluous, forward-looking, not posthumous, and offering a vision for Oregon's future that is not just about where we're going, but about who we are as a people. I stand before you today certain in my conviction that this great state is on the threshold of a dream that says, as a state that values knowledge, hard work, and innovation, Oregon will continue to attract new generations of artists, scholars, and entrepreneurs. As the state known for our open spaces and close-in neighborhoods, for protecting what is God-given to us, and for setting ambitious goals for renewable energy and cutting greenhouse gases, Oregon will lead the nation in sustainable development. And as a state that became a model for how to control pension costs, make higher education available and affordable for middle-class families, and prove that a green economy can be a strong economy, Oregon was within reach of that elusive middle ground, what Aristotle called the golden mean, that will allow us to have both prosperity and livability. Why, when headlines are leading with the bad news of today, am I focusing on the better news of tomorrow? Because I've met enough of our fellow citizens, from backwood trails to commercial downtowns to white dunes on the coast, to know that our aspirations are greater than our divisions. Our hopes are bigger than our doubts. And yes, our dreams are more powerful than the obstacles that stand in our way. So to those who say Oregon's fate is boom or bust, I say you're wrong. And to those who say any national economic tremor means an economic earthquake for Oregon, I say the only shaking we need to fear is the shaking of our confidence in our future. Today, Oregon is as much a guiding star for the young, imaginative, and entrepreneurial as the North Star was for ancient mariners. They come because they are attracted to our creative economy, and because we don't treat culture, history, art, movies, and preservation as frills, but as essential pieces of our quality of life. I would even venture to say that no one whose job is moved to Oregon is disappointed, and no one who must leave the boundless beauty of this state does so easily. I know the champions of prudence and modest expectations are out there, and I certainly recognize that optimism and self-confidence are never enough. We also need time, hard work, and a strong federal partner. But I want every Oregonian to know that we as a people can control our own fate and shape our own destiny. We as a people can continue to choose sustainable development, and if we do, we'll be rewarded in the global marketplace. We as a people measure progress not just by the strength of our economy, but by the strength of our values, by our ethic of self-improvement, and by the legacy of hope and faith that is every Oregonian's birthright. And the most important, we as a people live in a state that is already better than it ever has been and is on its way to being the best in the nation. That is who we are. I don't deny there are troubling trends in the national economy, or that those trends are having an impact on Oregon, especially for counties that depend on federal forest payments and are suffering the consequences of Washington's broken promises. Job growth in Oregon has flattened, but high-tech and renewable energy companies are still bringing new jobs to Oregon because they see Oregon as a place to grow their businesses. The February revenue forecast was down, leaving us a smaller but still positive ending balance. Still, I want to say something to Oregonians who are hurting. What we're experiencing is a dip in our economy that is not as deep as most in America, and will be easier to climb out of than past downturns. But if you are losing your home, or job, or health care, this is not just a dip. This is a severe storm. And as governor, I will do everything in my power to shelter you from that storm. Lastly, when we assess the impact of national trends on Oregon, we must not forget that Oregon has paid too high a price in lives and treasure for the war in Iraq that after more than 5 years has still not accomplished its mission or even been able to define one. But let me add this. There are many ways to define a casualty of war. There are those who literally lose their lives defending this nation's values. But I ask all of us to think about what $3 trillion could have done to provide health care for the American people, invest in an education system from preschool to graduate school, make Social Security solvent for future generations, and create a sustainable and independent energy policy for our country. Yes, like you, we are all casualties of this war. Having said that, I know Oregon's people and its economy are resilient. I recognize, as every person in Oregon recognizes, that this is a difficult time. It is a time that tests our courage and resolve. But I believe that Oregon's economy is on the right track. I believe that Oregon's economy is able to compete with any state at any time in any marketplace. And I believe that the people of Oregon are committed to both celebrating the past and building for the future as we mark our 150th birthday next year. To do that, I believe we need to answer what I call the Oregon Challenge, going from better, a goal we have undeniably achieved, to best in the nation. One of the reasons that I remain optimistic about Oregon is that businesses and labor, Democrats and Republicans, urban and rural communities have joined me in building a budget firewall in Salem. For the first time in decades, we have stability, integrity, and transparency in our state budget. And last year, we took the revenue from the corporate kicker and created a $319 million rainy day fund that will protect Oregon's vital services and lower our cost of borrowing. So today, we are better prepared to weather an economic dip in the short term and to invest in new funding for education, healthcare, transportation, and sustainable development in the long term. Oregonians understand that our economy is not a perpetual motion machine. Growth is powered by having the best trained, best skilled, best educated workforce in America. Oregonians understand that affordable, accessible, and high-quality health care is an economic necessity, and for our children, a moral imperative. Oregonians understand that rebuilding our transportation network will keep Oregon competitive and create thousands of family wage jobs. And Oregonians understand that climate change is real, and without a sustainable energy policy, our forest, water supplies, and coastal communities are all at risk. Why should we make these investments now, at a time of economic uncertainty? Because, as Martin Luther King said, the time is always ripe to do right. And answering the Oregon Challenge to become the best by investing in the future is absolutely the right thing to do. We have a window of opportunity to make the 5 major investments I'm going to talk about today. We dare not let the window close before we finish the work we must achieve and earn the full benefit of the successes we have already achieved. The first investment I want to talk about will come as no surprise. As I just suggested, Oregon must have the best trained, best skilled, best educated workforce in America. There is only one way to reach that goal. Invest from preschool to graduate school in the tools that builds minds and trains hands, because those minds and hands are what will build our economy. I would go so far as to say, if you want to know what the state of our state will be in 5, 10, or 20 years, tell me what the state of our commitment is to education right now, today, because that will make all the difference. In 2005, we made up for most of what we lost in 2003. And in 2007, we leaped forward with major new investments in Head Start, K through 12, and community colleges and universities, including major capital construction projects. We also invested in new ways to make our education system more efficient and effective. But this is no time, in the school analogy, for recess. We must continue the substantial progress we've already made. The only way to make certain that our schools are as good as they can be, our workers are as competitive as they can be, our economy is as strong as it can be, and the door of opportunity is as wide open as it can be, is through education. So here are the highlights of my education agenda. First, reach our goal of providing Head Start programs to 100% of eligible 3- and 4-year-old children. Second, increase funding for K through 12 so we can continue to reduce class size, restore art, music, and PE, and expand the variety of courses available to students. Much of the focus of this new investment must be made in professional development. If we're going to be successful with our new graduation requirements, we need to increase the number of trained math and science teachers. Third, reinvigorate. I'm going to say this, reinvigorate career technical education. These programs, through our community colleges and apprenticeship programs, need to reach back into our high schools and reach forward to the training needs of older workers. Fourth, develop a new and effective workforce training strategy. Business leaders talk to me about our quality of life. They know about our industry clusters and research institutions. What they don't know, and don't hesitate to ask, is whether they will be able to find skilled workers. With new industries poised to move here, existing industries wanting to expand here, and traditional businesses, many in the rural parts of our state, shedding jobs, we need to create a strong workforce training program that will give young workers the opportunity to enter the workforce and older workers the opportunity to trade up to new skills and a second chance at finding a family wage job. Fifth, last year we made major new investments in the Oregon University system, but it was never meant to be a one-shot deal. Next year, the focus will be on growing enrollment, meaning more new students coming in and fewer leaving before graduation. The sixth and last piece of my education agenda is to fully fund the shared responsibility model for college financial aid so that all qualified students will have the money they need to attend an Oregon community college or university. But there is a particular group of students that I want to draw special attention to. The young men and women serving in the Oregon National Guard. I cannot put into words how much these brave soldiers mean to Oregon. But if your community has been flooded and nearly cut off from civilization, you know. If your home has been saved from a raging forest fire, you know. And if you've been paying attention to the sacrifices Guard members and their families are making in Afghanistan and Iraq, you know. In 2005, we waived the last dollar of tuition for our National Guard troops. In February, we made this same waiver available for spouses and children of Guards men and women killed or permanently disabled in combat. But we need to do more. Members of the Oregon National Guard give up their jobs, they give up time with their families, and they too often give up their lives. The cost of higher education does not begin and end with tuition. There are books, living expenses, childcare, transportation, and more. That is why I am working to bring forward and working with the National Guard and the Oregon National Guard Adjutant General, Major Raymond Rees, to create an Oregon GI Bill, a stipend program that will be available for all members of the Oregon National Guard. We are asking the Oregon National Guard to do more for us. We need to respond in kind by making sure we do more for them. There's another area where we need to do more for all Oregonians. Our healthcare system is broken. It costs too much, it covers too few, it pits patients, doctors, and hospitals against insurance companies, and sometimes against each other. It also leaves our businesses at a competitive disadvantage. And if all this wasn't bad enough, healthcare has turned a core American value on its head. We the people is now we the people with insurance versus you, the people without insurance. This is not what our nation, our state, should be about. 1 out of 6 working age adults in Oregon has no health care. And even if you are one of the other 5, chances are you are insecure about whether your coverage will become too expensive to afford or drop for reasons beyond your control. Employers are also hurting under this current system because they keep trying to keep up with rising costs, and the state can't keep up with the cost either. We are covering more Oregonians through the Oregon Health Plan than we did 5 years ago, and we just opened the plan to another 10,000 adults. But as long as there are still thousands of Oregonians on a waiting list to join the plan, our work is not finished. Overall, 574,000 Oregonians do not have health care coverage, including 116,000 children. For someone who believes, as I do, that health care should be the responsibility of a just society, this is completely unacceptable. Yet, if nothing changes, our health care crisis is going to go from bad to worse. Within the next 10 years, health care will consume 20% of our economy. Working families will be paying double what they pay now, and our state budget will see tens of millions of dollars siphoned off from education, renewable energy, and other priorities to pay for a ballooning health care system. That's why today we are developing a comprehensive plan to reduce cost, expand coverage, and improve care. This plan will not be a quick fix. It will be a long-term vision that will lay out in sequence how we will reach the goal of affordable health care for all Oregonians. But I have a short-term goal too: to make sure every one of Oregon's uninsured children has health care coverage. You heard me say this before. You've heard me say this before, and I have not changed my mind one bit since I championed the Healthy Kids Initiative in 2007. We must make sure every child in Oregon has health care. Kids can't wait. We just took the first step. We have reduced the application form for the Oregon Health Plan from 13 pages to 2. This will make it easier for children to get coverage and at less cost to the state. By the end of this year, we will take the second step. I will extend the eligibility period for children on the Oregon Health Plan from 6 months to 12. This one change will eventually add 20,000 children to the plan. But the biggest steps are still to come. My next budget will include funds to cover at least half of the children whose parents cannot now afford coverage. How do I intend to get the other half? With a new tobacco tax. Yes, you heard me. Yes, you heard me correctly, with a new tobacco tax. The failure of Measure 50 last November was a setback, but I refuse to treat it as a defeat. If the tobacco companies think that the $12 billion they spent to defend the bargain basement price on their product here in Oregon, which happens to hook children and destroy lives, brought them a permanent victory in this battle, they are sadly mistaken. Measure 50 was not the end. Measure 50 was just the beginning of the fight. The tobacco companies need to get the message. An appropriate tax on your deadly product is still in our medicine cabinet, and the expiration date will never, never be reached. We will do things differently this time. The plan, including a tobacco tax, will be created and passed in the Capitol. And it will be in a statute, not the Oregon Constitution. Will the tobacco companies and their allies pour millions more into another slick, deceptive, anti-children campaign? Probably. It's in their DNA. And that is why we have to rally around Oregon's uninsured children with no less passion and determination than we rally around our own children when they are sick. And we have to rally around them now because that is in our DNA. An Oregon headline not long ago read, "Transportation tops to-do list." Well, yes and no. Transportation is not alone at the top. It shares that billing with my other 4 policy priorities. Nevertheless, this critical issue did not just suddenly jump onto my radar screen. In 2003, we passed a $2.5 billion package to rebuild Oregon's roads and bridges. And in 2005 and 2007, we invested a total of $200 million more in our seaports, airports, and railroads. But our transportation infrastructure is still not keeping up with population growth or freight traffic. And this problem does not just impact businesses. Millions of Oregonians sit in traffic every day and fume. And I don't mean tailpipe emissions, although that's a problem too. Congestion is frustrating. It's costly, it adds to global warming, and if we don't act, it's going to get worse. Moms and dads are stuck on I-5 when they want to be home reading to their children. Balancing work and family life, which is hard enough, has morphed into balancing work, family life, and rush hour. And more time in traffic means less time for each of us to enjoy what is best about Oregon. There is also the issue of safety. Parents want to know that the roads they and their children drive on are safe, and that the bridges they cross will not collapse. So this problem must be solved the right way, the Oregon way. Oregon must have the greenest transportation system in the country. This will not happen if all we do is build more roads. In the words of the transportation experts, the system must be multimodal. That means alternative fuels for our cars and trucks, and even more important, alternative vehicles like electric cars and light rail to eliminate our reliance on fossil fuels. Let me say a word about the Columbia Crossing. I stand ready to support the City of Portland, Metro, and the entire region to build a national demonstration project. But my support comes with the expectation that this bridge will improve safety, it will be accessible to all modes of transportation, and it will be the greenest large-scale project this nation has ever seen. My bottom line on transportation is this. We need to make greater investments in our public transportation system. To accomplish this goal, I will present a comprehensive transportation package to the legislature, which will be larger, greener, safer, and more strategic than anything we have ever done before. And for those of you, like me, who are old enough to remember 45 RPM records, sometimes a long song would start on side A and continue on to side B. Case in point, age, Don McLean's American Pie. I happen to remember the lyric, I drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. I guess Don McLean discovered the link between transportation and climate change 30 years before the rest of us. That's not opposite sides of a policy divide. They're two sides of the same tune I call building a sustainable economy. So let's not fall into the trap of making false choices. We can invest in transportation and face up to the challenge of climate change. We can create living wage jobs and reduce greenhouse gases. And we can have a modern infrastructure and sustainable growth. What we cannot do is wait. That's why I've been working on global climate change since 2003 by forging partnerships with business, environmental groups, and legislators on both sides of the aisle whenever possible, and using the courts to protect the health and quality of life of Oregonians whenever necessary. In 2007, we passed landmark energy legislation, including a renewable electricity and a renewable fuel standard that are among the most ambitious in the nation. Revolutionary. Revolutionary is not too strong a word for what we accomplished last year. We made real headway, but not enough. We must do more to reduce greenhouse gases and mitigate the damage that climate change is certain to bring. Signs of that damage are everywhere. For anyone who is willing to look, more frequent and severe storms, shrinking snowpack that threatens to bring both spring flooding and inadequate summer water supplies. Mount Hood's glaciers are literally melting away. Our forests are in danger of burning away, and our beaches are at risk of being washed away. So this is not a problem waiting over the horizon. The problem is here. It's calamity that's waiting over the horizon. Still, for me, global warming and sustainable development are as much an opportunity as they are a challenge. They are an opportunity to face up to our looming shortfall of water through both storage and conservation. People outside this state may wonder, how can Oregon, of all places, be worried about not having enough water? But we know better. That's why 2 weeks ago, I went to Hermiston and signed Senate Bill 1069, which directs almost $2 million for feasibility studies across the state and another $750,000 to test for ways to divert surface water into the Umatilla Basin aquifer. This water can be stored and later used for irrigation and fish protection. But Senate Bill 1069 was only one small step. We need a much broader approach, including conservation, to make sure we always have high-quality, stable, and abundant water supplies. Global warming and sustainable development are also an opportunity to attract new companies that are a great fit for our economy, that need a highly skilled workforce, and that want an excellent quality of life. That means renewable energy companies, including wind, wave, geothermal, and especially solar. Oregon is on the cusp of becoming the largest producer of photovoltaic solar cells in the nation. And this, if you'll pardon the expression, the 60 solar companies that are here today is just the tip of the iceberg. Oregon is ready to outdistance every other state in the development of renewable energy. in creative thinking about how to reduce greenhouse gases, and in the moral leadership required to heal our sick planet. However, we cannot do this alone. More than 10 Oregon communities have made commitments to reduce greenhouse gases. I will work with them and communities throughout Oregon to find local solutions to global warming. So at least in this field, we don't need to go from better to best in the nation. We are already there. And in the years ahead, we're going to open up a wider lead. We do need a program to cap greenhouse gas emissions and a regional trading system that will give industries flexibility to reduce their carbon footprint at the lowest possible cost. This cap and trade proposal grows out of the Western Climate Initiative that I formed with other Western governors. It is a model for our national leaders to follow, and it can be a great benefit to Oregon by allowing us to reward landowners in our timber counties for preserving healthy forests. Remember, healthy forests are the lungs of our planet. It wasn't that long ago that industrial waste was simply dumped into our nation's rivers. No one in their right mind would want to return to that way of doing business. Well, the day is near when unfettered greenhouse gas emissions will be considered equally unacceptable. But to make that day possible will take leadership, bipartisanship, and a determination to pass cap and trade, and my entire agenda of energy efficiency, green building, electric vehicles, and green workforce development before the end of the 2009 legislative session. I mentioned the bipartisan decision in 2007 to put the carpet kicker into a rainy day fund that will give Oregon the financial stability that it has never had in its history. The days of walking a budget tightrope without a safety net are over. But now we need an insurance policy. Translation, a stronger rainy day fund that relies on a steady and predictable stream of income, not an occasional infusion of funds. To accomplish this, we must first raise the corporate minimum and end the embarrassment of companies, many from outside of Oregon and many with profits in the millions, paying a paltry $10 a year in corporate income taxes. And second, we must permanently dedicate the increased value of the corporate minimum to the rainy day fund. We were close to a decision and a consensus on raising the corporate minimum in 2007, but we fell short. There is absolutely no reason to fall short again. We need to raise the corporate minimum, we need to bank the corporate minimum, and we need to rely on the corporate minimum to make sure that the education of our children and the health of our most vulnerable citizens are never again sacrificed on the altar of tough economic times. My fellow citizens, it is never difficult to find a reason not to act. The economy is slowing, there's an election coming up, the opposition has too much money, the press might criticize us. Let someone else stick their neck out. You've heard them all, and so have I. But I repeat the quote from Martin Luther King that I used at the start of my remarks. The time is always ripe to do right. Does anyone seriously think that we can lose in the education marketplace and still win in the global marketplace? Does anyone seriously think that thousands of Oregon families and businesses aren't buckling under the weight of health care costs, or that history will not condemn us if we continue to allow our children to go without health insurance. Does anyone seriously think that we can have a 21st century economy with a 20th century transportation network? Does anyone seriously think that global warming isn't a threat to agriculture, commercial fishing, and our quality of life? Does anyone seriously think that it isn't immoral for corporations to be paying the same minimum tax they paid during the Great Depression while the cost of basic necessities for working families goes through the roof? The answer to these questions are self-evident. Our challenge, the Oregon challenge, is to answer them not with fear, but with hope, not with hand-wringing, but with action. This is how we will go from better to best. So the time to act is now. The need to act is beyond argument. And the reason to act is to fulfill the promise, secure the future, and earn the blessings of the state we all love and serve. Thank you, and God bless Oregon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor. We've got just a little short of 10 minutes for questions. Our first question today will be asked by City Club Board host Marge Gafori. Marge directed Portland's Office of Government Relations for 19 years. She's now a political consultant and lobbyist. She chaired the City Club's program committee, received the club's President's Award in 1994. She first joined the City Club in 1980. Marge?
Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Governor. I always love the passion and enthusiasm that you bring to your speeches, and we welcome you again to the City Club. My question is different than the one I told you I was going to ask. Sorry. They say that a sure sign of madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So with respect to the Healthy Kids Initiative, which was defeated last November in the poll, or in the ballot, could you say more about what you expect to be different in 2009?
Well, let me start off by telling you what is not different. It is still, I believe, the responsibility of a just society to see that our citizens have health insurance. I think it is still a moral imperative that we see that our children have health insurance. I do not take an election defeat as the final word on this or any other issue. Will it be the same as it was last time? No. It is a different approach. We're going to do this in the building. The legislators are going to step up, and we're going to do this ourselves. It is our responsibility. We have the same moral imperative that I believe that we all have. It is time for the legislature to step up to this and see that every child in this state has access to health care.
We now turn to questions from our City Club audience. Asking your question is a privilege of City Club membership. Please limit your question to 30 seconds, and remember that it ends with a question mark. And make sure to speak right into that mic, because it's a difficult room to hear. Thank you.
Hi, Lily Mandel, City Club member. Wow, this is the second passionate, inspiring speech I heard today. But I have a question. As a superdelegate, will you follow the express will of the citizens from the results of the primary? I have the audacity to hope so.
If the vote is unanimous for one candidate, I will follow the will of the people. Look, I mean, you know, I have come out, I've traveled to Iowa, I'm going to Pennsylvania. I will continue to support Senator Clinton. And if she says you're released, I'm released, and I'll do something different, but I'm still going to support her.
Wynn Wakala, City Club member. This is timber country. I grew up in a small timber town in southwestern Oregon, and my concern is about plastic bags. I mean, we were the first state to have the bottle bill. Gasoline is used to make plastic bags. I would love to see Oregon become the first state to ban plastic bags. And my other concern is there any impetus towards that? The other concern is, I know traveling in Europe, trains are used for freight. It takes a lot of trucks off the roads. And I know that's a national concern, but are we doing anything to help towards that? Thank you.
I didn't catch the first part of it, I'm sorry.
About making plastic bags illegal in Oregon.
My wife's sitting down here in front and she's going, yeah, yeah. That's what she tells me all the time. Why are you bringing that bag home for? She says, why don't you take my cloth bag and this recycled bag that she has gotten from some source. But answer to you, I do not think that Oregon or this country needs to have its future decided on having plastic shopping bags. I think that, let me tell you that the other issue is the issue about railroads. Actually, I am a great fan of the railroads, and that's why we came up with Connect Oregon 1 and Connect Oregon 2. It was to partner with the Class 1 railroads and at the same time have resources to help our short line railroads, which are so critical to a number of our smaller communities around the natural resource-based industry. So I will continue to push forward with the effort with Connect Oregon 1 and 2. I would have to tell you, I've met with the railroad companies, and I think they believe that their day is coming again, and I think they're right.
Ray Polani, a City Club member. Governor, I think we have more automobiles than people in this state. This is very unhealthy. Build and they will grow. Rebuild and they will grow. We need alternatives. The lady mentioned trains. I mentioned public transportation. It's time to fund equally public transportation and trains because it's essential. It's economic, it's environmental, it's global warming, it's energy, it's space in our cities.
Yes.
Hi there. As someone who moved to Oregon as part of that creative class that you described earlier a couple of years ago, and as someone whose job it is to track the clean energy industry, it really is remarkable to see the gains that you and your staff have made over the last couple of years in attracting these companies to Oregon. But as someone who's in touch with a lot of these companies, like myself, if you talk to the HR departments in any of these clean tech companies, they all say the same thing. They can't hire enough good, skilled people. What can we see from the governor's office to ensure that the new energy economy that's going to drive Oregon will be well equipped with a workforce that comes not just from people from out of the state, but also from Portland itself? How can we provide the training for those people?
You know, this is a great question because there was an article, if you saw in the morning Oregonian, about the number of people who will be retiring in the next 10 or 12 years from both the governmental entities, the city and the county, but also from businesses. The reality is, I actually think the next crisis facing this country is our loss of our skilled workforce. Now, there will be a short-term benefit because what's going to happen, as I look around the room and all those of us past 65, we are going to end up working until we're 70 or 75 years of age, not by choice, but by people coming to us and saying, we need your skill. And probably it's going to give those older workers a little more power in the marketplace because they're going to be able to schedule their own hours. They'll probably be able to dictate some of their own benefits, what they want to stay. But the fact is, we do have to develop a strategy of trying to provide more job skills for people who are skilled workers. The reality is it starts with each and every one of us, and stop telling every high school student that the only way that they're going to be measured as a value to our society is if they go to college and get a degree. The truth of it is, it's great to be a plumber. There's nothing wrong with it, and they're great jobs. I need electricians. I need workers who have the skills to build all the things that you and I want, and I'm going to tell you, we have a comprehensive program with my newly appointed Commissioner of Labor, Brad Avakian, in the back, who is going to work with us to develop that program.
We could go on for hours, I'm sure. Unfortunately, our time is up. We have to adjourn. Governor, thank you very much.